I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off-road. The guy managed the group. He was like, what are you doing in this beautiful car? I'm like, I'm going off-road. He's like, are you sure? Because you can use one of ours. And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability, as well as its robust interior, are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show on the Choose Yourself Network. Today on the James Altucher Show.
I actually am a vegetarian, so I didn't eat much meat.
Wait, I didn't know that. How long have you been a vegetarian?
I have been for a long time, I didn't eat fish. But this is something actually I'm very excited about. I'm a vegetarian for ethical reasons. I actually am not a huge fan of animals. I think they're pretty terrible people. I don't think that they're wonderful, but I do feel they suffer pain. So if I am trying to decrease the amount of pain in the world, an easy way is not to have meat.
I had no idea. So what's another easy way to decrease the pain in the world that you do?
Well, I'm thinking of some weird ones.
I want to go 2 steps back. How do you come up with that initial idea? Like how someone listening to this can start coming up with fun ideas of something that's worth exploring and yet so simple to explain.
I try to have everything have a net benefit. That's how I make decisions. Like I came up with this just last week, this sort of 4-quadrant way of making decisions. So when I'm trying to decide my next book project, the 4 quadrants are my current happiness, my future happiness, because it could be that it's a pain in the ass to write the book, but that it'll lead to great things. That's 2 quadrants. And then on the other side is the world's happiness and the world's future happiness. It's all about delayed gratification.
I am so excited for this sponsor, Indochino. Before Indochino, I only had 3 outfits, and many of you know the reason. I threw out all of my belongings, but finally, I got rid of one and replaced it with a suit from Indochino because, believe it or not, they made me fall in love with the feeling of wearing a made-to-measure suit. Indochino is making it really easy for you to get a perfectly tailored suit at an incredible price. Visit a showroom or shop online at Indochino.com. Pick your fabric, choose your customizations, submit your measurements. And this week, my listeners can get any premium Indochino suit for just $379 at Indochino.com when entering James at checkout. That's 50% off the regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit. Plus, shipping is free. That's Indochino.com, promo code James, for any premium suit for just $379 and free shipping. Incredible deal for a suit that will fit you better than anything off the rack ever could. Today's show is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is much more than just another greens product, and I'm going to tell you why. Athletic Greens is the most complete supplement available, with 75 ingredients working together to help with 11 different areas of health. I take it every morning because health is the only requirement for real success. Think about how much support your body really needs to keep you going. Sleep, fruits, vegetables, and probably 1,000 other nutrients. You need prebiotics, probiotics for digestion, and your body needs adaptogens, and you need stress and hormone support. Really, health is difficult, and it's not something you want to take for granted or do alone. So if you're like me and want to have full confidence in your daily health regime, then you really should try Athletic Greens today. So I've asked Athletic Greens for a special deal for my listeners. You can receive 30% off your first purchase. Simply go to athleticgreens.com/James to claim this special offer. That's athleticgreens.com/James. Please start your daily routine today. Go to athleticgreens.com/James and subscribe today. You probably have heard of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. I call them choose-yourself currencies because they don't depend on any institutions to function, and they're simply exploding in price right now. Some have jumped as high as 3,000%, 21,000%, and even a rare 81,000%. If you're missing out on this boom, don't worry, you're not alone. Most people are not investing in crypto simply because they don't even know how to get started. So I decided to do something about that. I want to help listeners like you get started in this booming market. So I'm offering a free 6-video series masterclass on cryptocurrencies, all for free. I'll walk you step by step through the entire process. If you're interested in claiming this free masterclass, please go to altucher.io. That's altucher.io/masterclass, where you'll find all of the details. So I'm here with my good friend and good friend of the podcast, AJ Jacobs. Welcome, AJ.
Great to be back.
And AJ, there's like two main things going on in your life, which we'll talk about a little bit, but we're also going to kind of kick off a mini series, which I'll describe in a second. We've already done episode 0. This is episode 1. But first off, I'm holding in here the advanced uncorrected proof of your next book. It's All Relative: Adventures Up and Down the World's Family Tree. And it's about how you've basically connected genealogically the entire world. I was at it. You threw the Guinness Book of World Records world's largest family reunion.
And you were a speaker, which
I was a speaker
very honored. Yes.
And Dr. Oz was a speaker, my cousin Dr. Oz.
Your cousin Dr. Oz. And Sister Sledge came and sang We Are Family. Rest in
I have a
peace.
photo. I was standing right behind Sister Sledge on the stage while she was singing. It was the pride and joy of my life.
I loved your voice better than that. I wanted to tune them out and just listen to you.
I was harmonizing with them, and I know I rose above the crowd, just because of my beautiful singing voice. And the other thing going on in your life, which I'm really excited about for you, and I say this with all sincerity. Like, I think sometimes people say that, I don't mean it, but I am super excited about the shooting of your TV pilot for the Year of Living Biblically. They're making that into a TV series.
They are. It's going to be on CBS in the winter. And,
what a great idea for a TV show. Like, do you get involved in like the script writing or anything? Do you hang out in the writer's room?
It's very interesting. I mean, I sold them the rights, and then I am allowed to come. I can enjoy the craft services, the yogurts and what have you. And I've offered to give them ideas, but they are, I think a lot of TV writers, they're just like, let me do my own thing.
Well, they're experts at it. Like, you're an expert writer, obviously. You've written all these New York Times bestselling books, and you're a very Mark Twain style humorist, kind of this very, I don't know, I always think of you as a humorist, like this very American Mark Twain style, just humor. Like you challenge yourself.
I like that title, humorist.
Yeah, you're funny, your writing's funny, but TV script writing, those guys, it's a different craft and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
good at it.
Agree. Yeah, I'm happy. I feel like I grew a potato. I'm giving them the potato. They can make French fries. They can make mashed potatoes. It may be terrible. They'll make mix in peanut butter and sardines. It could suck, but I'm enjoying it from afar. It's a very much a lesson in releasing, Zen releasing. Like you go do what you want. Here's what I've done, and
Well, I wanna actually talk about that because that's related to everything we're going to talk about. The idea of this miniseries, I just want to kind of lay the groundwork, and then we'll just start talking about anything. But we're each going to come up with a challenge for the other. Come back a week later, describe whether we succeeded or failed at the challenge and why and what we learned and so on, and then challenge each other to the next thing. And the idea is that challenges help us get out of our comfort zone. We learn from them. It makes our lives better.
Right.
And there's lots of reasons to kind of do all these things. But it strikes me that you have lived kind of this dream life with this dream job. And I'll describe what I mean. I mean, most people can't do this. Like your entire career, you've come up with ideas that have been on the intersection of what you were curious about with what also took you out of your comfort zone. So you did them to kind of get out of your comfort zone and satisfy your curiosity. And then you wrote about it in this funny way. And it's blossomed into this amazing career of articles, best-selling books. I mean, I see your books. I see all of your books in every single airport bookstore. It's amazing. Now a potential TV show. You give talks. You do podcasts. It's really created this entire umbrella, again, at this intersection between discomfort and curiosity.
That is true. I kind of like to embrace the discomfort. A friend of mine called Fun Comfortable is a friend of mine.
I love that.
Yeah.
Fun comfortable.
Fun Comfortable. I was just watching.
Is this copy mine? Because I'm going to write that word down.
Yeah, please. Deface it all you want.
I'm gonna
Cross
deface
things
this.
out.
Hey, am I in the acknowledgments of this
Of
book?
course. You are huge in the acknowledgments. In fact, that was one of my marketing ideas was, since everyone's a family, if I could do like 600 pages of acknowledgments in 10-point font and thank every member of my family, hundreds of thousands. And then they'd all have to buy the book. So,
Wait, I'm going to find my name. Hold
all right.
on.
It should be in the acknowledgments. I think I mentioned you twice in the acknowledgments. I'm trying to
Because I'm your cousin.
make it
twice?
look longer. Yeah. Well, you're definitely, I list all the people who spoke at the Global Family Reunion. So,
All right, well, I'll find it later.
all
I see a lot of good names here. So,
well, I tried to go for break the world record for the longest acknowledgments. So
is there a world record for that?
I looked it up and there isn't. So I'm going to establish one.
Oh, man. So many world records I've been involved in. I feel like I've broken the world record if I'm in one of your world records.
You
I'm in
have.
the Guinness Book of World Records.
Have you broken any others? What was besides?
Well, just of being in the largest speaker
yeah.
at the world's largest family reunion, hosted by AJ Jacobs.
Yeah, but I feel you could break many more. I feel that you have the potential.
We'll see. But I mean, think about it. Your first book, which now is going to be a TV show, which you've given 1 billion talks about. And I don't know if it was your first book. It was kind of the most popular, I would say, or the one that most people will say. I'll say, do you know AJ Jacobs? And they're like, oh, it sounds familiar. And he wrote The Year of Living Biblically. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, he's got the beard on the cover.
I really think that was the secret to my success, is just the beard. If I were not hairy, I would have no career. But luckily, I grew a huge beard.
And you had to grow a beard because there's some obscure biblical rule which you can't shave the corners of your beard.
Exactly. You are like a biblical scholar. You cannot shave the corners of your beard in Leviticus. And I didn't know where the corners were. So I just let the whole thing grow. And it was huge. It was I spent a lot of time at airport security, as I like to say. Because
you were a Jewish terrorist.
I looked like one for sure. People would give me money on the street because they thought I was homeless. So that was another income stream.
And then, very good income stream there.
I did have to give it to charity as part of my biblical living,
and anonymously, right?
That's true. Although I disagree with that. I think
the biggest mitzvah is to do it anonymously.
Yeah, I know. They say don't trumpet your good deeds. But I've come around to the other side, and we can talk about that if you want, that bragging about good deeds is a good thing. Because Bill Gates, it's not like the Melinda and Anonymous Foundation. It's the Bill, and he's right out there, and that inspires other people to give.
Well, I think that's a good point, actually. Like, if your name is itself a brand, like, people trust that Bill Gates has done his research and his due diligence. So if he were to do it anonymously, it wouldn't have actually as much worldwide strength as saying this is a Bill Gates donation.
Right.
Now, if I were to say this is a James Altucher donation, people might run the other way and say,
Nope,
oh,
I
no,
will-
this guy loses his money all the time. I'm not giving the money there.
I will follow wherever you donate. Yeah.
But the year of living biblically is perfect because you were probably curious, does it actually make your life better? As many people would preach, literally, it would make your life better to live a more biblical life. And so you were probably curious about it. And certainly, as you demonstrate in the book over and over, basically in every chapter, it was definitely outside your comfort zone.
Oh, yeah. It was the
Like
hardest.
stoning somebody in Central Park for adultery did not seem like it was in your comfort zone.
No, that was hard to do. That was like, not in my usual. Well, it was hard in two different ways because there were rules like don't gossip and don't lie and don't covet. And I'm a journalist and I live in New York City, so that's my 80% of my day.
Is coveting.
I love to covet. So that was hard. But then, as you point out, the ancient rules about stoning adulterers or not touching women when they're menstruating, or this one no one follows anymore. Don't touch men for a day after they have emitted their essence. Like,
really? Is that so Onan, it's masturbation's named after a biblical character named Onan, is Onanism.
Right.
So Onan was like a grandson of Jacob, and his I guess his older brother died, so he got his older brother's wife, and he did not want to kind of spoil the memory of his older brother, so he didn't want to have sex with her, so he would spill his seed.
Yeah, he would pull out. He would pull out. You know your Bible.
I do know my Bible. And but when was the rule created of not touching a man who?
Well, that was very early. It had to do with purity. A lot of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, is very much about purity. And there's a little, we were talking about OCD earlier, a little OCD element to it. So it's like not touching things and touching things, keeping things separate. So very early on, it was you couldn't touch women when they were menstruating, and you cannot touch a man for a day after he ejaculates because then he's impure.
So it's interesting. Like, let's say I always find this about the biblical laws is that there's like two layers of the law. So the real idea is you can't touch a man who maybe has sperm on him, but a day is kind of like. You're okay, we're safe. At least it's been a day. He's probably bathed in the river or the Dead Sea or whatever. And it's just like the don't drink milk with meat. The real rule is don't drink the mother's milk with the meat of the child. But you're safe if you just eliminate. That's the real rule. But then they have the second layer, so you're safe, which is don't drink the milk with any meat. So then you're definitely safe. And I always find there's always that extra layer.
Well, yeah, that's what's interesting is over the years, that's one of my points about the Bible and religion. It's more like Wikipedia than it is like a text. It evolves, and the Bible was written over hundreds of years by dozens of people. And then people have interpreted it in these crazy ways ever since. So, as you say, the real rule is don't eat a baby goat that's been boiled in its mother's milk. So that's my goal, was to live strictly by the Bible. So I had to spend a year not boiling a baby goat in its mother's milk.
So you wouldn't play the extra, like you were safe if you just simply didn't drink milk with meat.
Right.
But you took it much more literally?
I took it literally. So if I needed to, I would have like boiled a baby goat in its grandmother's milk or its aunt's milk or something. You can always...
But then you would have milk with meat otherwise?
Well, there is nothing literally in the Bible that says. I actually am a vegetarian, so I didn't eat much meat.
Wait, I didn't know that. How long have you been a vegetarian?
I have been about, for a long time, I didn't eat fish. But this is something actually I'm very excited about. I'm a vegetarian for ethical reasons. I'm not a huge fan of animals. I think they're pretty terrible people. Like I know a lion, if I make the wrong move, will go to my throat. So I'm not deluded. I don't think that they're wonderful, but I do feel they suffer pain. So if I am trying to decrease the amount of pain in the world, An easy way is not to have meat because, so, but this is what I'm very excited about,
I'm gonna
James.
write that down. I had no idea. So it's part of this idea of you have an overall philosophy. Let's decrease the pain in the world, and there's probably hard ways to do it. Like let's solve, the ice caps melting. That's a difficult way to decrease the pain in the world.
Right.
Or an easy way. There's probably 10 easy ways to decrease the pain in the world, and one of them is simply not eating meat.
Yeah,
not increasing the demand for farmed meat.
Yeah, it's like just an easy heuristic. And
What's another easy way to decrease the pain in the world
that
you do?
well, I'm thinking of some weird ones, like not man spreading on the subway, and not like and walking. I notice that people who like take up a lot of room on the sidewalk, like that's fun for them, but you got to think of other people. And
So that's part of man spreading, I would say.
yeah, it's like man spreading across the sidewalk. But can I just to tie up the meat thing? I am very excited by the prospect of cultured meat. This meat they make in a lab where they take a cell from a pig and you grow like a rib or a hamburger from a cow. And this is closer than people think. I think I talked to a guy who's writing a book about it, and we're going to have these lab-grown milk in like a couple of years available to the consumer. And this is great because then I'll have no ethical problem. I'll eat, and it opens up the world. Like you can eat a hamburger from a cow because the cow's not hurt. You just take a swab of its cheek. But you could also eat giraffe or rhinoceros, or my most exciting idea, ethical
Human.
camel. Yeah, why not? There's
Sure.
no ethical
Well, you know
problem.
why? We're probably real gamey. Like we notice humans, or at least in America, we usually don't eat meat that is. Most of the meat we eat are themselves vegetarians.
Interesting.
So humans are. You would only want to eat if following
Like
that
Alicia
trend.
Silverstone. You would
Yeah,
only want to eat vegetarian
humans.
humans.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't think about that.
You know what?
But
And-
eating celebrities, I think, is a big market. I mean,
Yeah.
can you imagine?
Yeah,
Like,
clone stem cells of celebrities. That's be interesting. Well, Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google or whatever you call it, Alphabet, he said that the biggest trend is not AI or VR or robotics, but plant-based foods that taste like meat. Because just with 10 billion potential people on the planet, you got to feed them all, and food grown in a laboratory, one way or the other, is essentially the biggest scientific trend happening right now.
yeah. Well, I think it could be. I mean, it would be huge. It would change,
So
everything.
But under the category of decreasing, easy ways to decrease
That's a good question.
pain, there's not man spreading, there's being a vegetarian.
Yeah, let me think. What else do I do?
Probably not gossiping.
Yeah, not gossiping. Well, a certain level of gossiping is evolutionarily good.
But in a positive way, like you're like, I could tell you, hey, work with this person work with this publisher because they're a good publisher to work
That's
with.
nice.
So that's
Nice
like
gossip.
positive
Right.
gossip. Or I could also say, for your benefit, you know what? Here's my experience with this publisher. It's not necessarily positive for me. Take it with it what you will. So there's probably positive, constructive ways to gossip.
I like that.
So
and that
constructive
was
gossip.
So yeah, and I did for my Bible book. I did try to get rid of gossip, and it was fascinating because it changed the way I perceived people. Because if you stop saying lots of negative things about people, which is sort of my go-to, it made me more positive. It made me think in more positive ways and look for their good. So it really had an impact.
I wish more people would do that. Like I feel, and I don't know if you've had this experience, I feel the more people I know in life, the more people I know who don't do that. Because in general, most people don't do that and are just constantly saying negative things, and it's very hurtful.
Yeah.
Particularly, I'm sure as your books became more widely known, you got hate mail along the way, and every now and then something hits buttons and it's painful.
Right.
I don't know if you felt that, but
No, absolutely.
like, what's the worst hate mail you've gotten?
Oh, I've gotten tons. In my first book, I misspelled the name of hockey great Wayne Gretzky. I spelled it with an S instead of a Z. And I thought that Canadians were nice people, but apparently not. You misspell Wayne Gretzky's name, you get like dozens of like, you should die. So that was just one example. But yeah, tons and tons of, I mean, to me, I do like the idea. There are 350 million people in America. I always tell my kids this. Not all of them are gonna love you. Even if you get 10% who like you,
That's 35 million people.
that's a lot of people. And
Well,
so
it's like a friend calls me up and he said, I can't find a girlfriend. 90% of the women I meet are just no good for me. And I don't know what's good for him or not, but he's saying 90%. And I'm like, well, that sounds pretty good. That means 700 million people on the planet are probably
Exactly.
good for you.
That-
well, I've cut that in half, so 350 million people.
I always like to remind people that the moon landing, when it was aired, got a 93 share on Nielsen, meaning 7% of people were like, I'd rather watch the Three Stooges. I literally think that was what was on opposite
Oh
the
my
moon
God.
landing.
That is such a great stat because I'm thinking 93%. Oh my God, that's even bigger than like the finale of MASH. But you make a great point. 7% actually saw that on TV because there's only 3 stations then.
Right.
ABC, NBC, and CBS, and maybe PBS. So and probably the 3 major ones all had it on. So
They had to go searching.
So they had to actually find like some UHF channel or whatever. And 7% like turned on the channel, saw Neil Armstrong walking on another planet and said, you know what? This is not entertaining enough for me, and I am going to switch the channel.
Literally the most historic moment in the evolution of humankind, perhaps. And they're like, I'd rather see these guys poke each other in the eye.
That's an amazing statistic.
So even that, you'll never get 100% of people to like you. The moon landing did not get 100%.
So kind of always remembering that is a way of decreasing the pain of man.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to A, reduce your own suffering, and B, kind of help other people get through suffering, or acknowledge that you don't have to be the pain for other people. You don't have to like most people, for instance.
Right. And of course I still get hurt a lot, but I've gotten much better at my skin has gotten a lot thicker because I just realized, especially with the internet, it's crazy what people will say because those comments are the ones that are going to rise to the top. The ones that, people will make fun of my orthodonture. I have a little bit of an overbite. They're like Bugs Bunny.
Right, and then 27 people will like that, and it'll appear on the top of the comment thread.
What is the meanest? Let me just, I do want to, because you must have had some lovely ones. What are the craziest things people have said about you that you've had to shrug off?
Oh my God, every single time it's like your hair is too crazy. Is this guy like a monster or
But that's good because
whatever.
it's sort of like the, a
people
trademark.
recognize me in the street because of that too. Like people will say, "Oh, all I saw was your silhouette. Or I saw the shadow of you," and I said that must be James Altucher.
That is a good thing when people can recognize you from your silhouette.
But then just in general, ugliness, craziness, stupidity. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Like a lot of times I'll predict something like years and years ago, and not all my predictions come true, but some pretty big ones have come true. And I'll get so much hate for the predictions in the beginning, and then nobody later will ever say, "Oh, yeah, James said this 5 years ago." No, not a single person has ever reminded me, "Didn't you say that 5 years ago?" And
well, let's get you some positive feedback now.
It's okay. Life is short. I'm always focused on the next thing.
All right.
Life is short is another. It's basically true. Like your birth certificate has an expiration date on it.
Yeah.
So life is pretty short, and it's helpful to remember that.
Well, you know what I do? I find very helpful is the memento mori. In medieval times, all the paintings.
What's it called? Memento mori?
Yeah, reminder of death.
Is this like the Stoic coin? I see people carrying this coin that I think says that.
Oh yeah, I think Ryan Holiday started that. I did see that. This is, but in the Middle Ages, you would have like a skull on your desk to remind you life is short and carpe diem. Enjoy every day. For a while, I'm looking now. I think I took it off. I had a little cute skull GIF on my laptop to remind me. And I originally had like a scary skull, but that was depressing me. So I got like a fun little multicolored smiling skull. And it got the point across, like, we're going to die unless Aubrey de Grey is right and we'll live forever. We're 99% going to die.
There is no way I want to live forever. I think.
What would
daily
you
life-
like? What would be what's a good 200 years?
No.
150?
I have one 18-year-old and one 15-year-old. So once the 15-year-old is 18, I feel after that, I could check out. Doesn't matter to me.
So you've got 3 years left, and
I've
then
got 3 years potentially. 3 years is all I care about.
I see.
I want to
Gotcha.
live another 3 years. After that, I don't care.
And
Because life's
I hope
pretty
you'll stick
annoying.
around.
Like every day you got to go to the bathroom all day long. Then you wake up in the middle of the night, you have to go to the bathroom. You have to deal with, the 7% of people who didn't watch the moon landing. Life's pretty annoying.
You got to look for the non-annoying parts. I feel that.
I got 3 years left of doing that. I'm okay with that. But then after that, I'll start remembering why I don't like it
I
anymore.
will say, I told my wife that I'm going to outsource my funeral because I'm not going to be there. Like, I don't care what happens. Let it be for the enjoyment of others. So whatever they want. If they want like a luau, if they want, to watch video clips, if they don't want a funeral at all, whatever. That's the way I feel. And for my body, since I don't really believe in reincarnation or an afterlife, I'll donate half my body to science and half to the cannibalism fetish community because I feel they're underserved, at least until we get the ethical human meat.
You just tied into 2 different Louis C.K. jokes.
Really?
So, yeah, the first one is people always say, will you do this with my ashes and throw it here and throw it there? And Louis C.K. is like, no, I will not. You're dead. I'm not running errands for you now. You're dead already. And then the other joke is he says he wants to do exactly that with his body. Let people who have kind of this necrophilia fetish just have at it.
Oh, interesting.
Because he wants to be in death, he wants to be the Willy Wonka of necrophiliac. So
I love it. I ripped him off. I did the cannibalism twist. So there's room for both, I think.
So I think the point of this segment, which is a really great point, is figuring out easy ways to decrease pain for humanity. And the first you came up with was your vegetarianism and kind of also a solution out of it if they ever start growing in a kind of safe, organic way food. You still don't want them to swipe off cells from farmed cows that are raised in cages or whatever. But if there's some organic way that they're doing it, then that seems like it could finally introduce you back to meat.
Well, and I also don't want to come off like I'm, some sort of incredibly moral person, because I'm not. A lot of it is selfishly motivated because I think that when in my 20s, I focused exclusively on myself, on my own career, on my own happiness. So if something bad happened to me, it was like the end of the world. But I've been able to shift somewhat, maybe like 40% of my brain power to focusing on other people. And that way, I'm much happier. You get that warm glow that scientists have measured when they donate, they actually get like this dopamine boost.
And it doesn't have to be just charity, by the way. I think it improves your writing in the sense that you're not just writing about something you did so that you could benefit your career with a great book, but you're, like this book, it's all relative about kind of the family tree of the world is all about how we're all connected. So that should make us, in a sense, like each other more.
Right.
And I think you did this book in part out of, I want to use the word altruistic purposes, as well as your own, career purposes. This is your career to find these things.
It was selfish altruism for sure.
But that hits upon what I really want to hit on here, which is a lot of people, like even people listening to this, like how old are you, AJ? You're the same age as me.
49. We're
49. What's your month again? You just turned 49.
I'm March. You're
January.
January. Okay.
Yeah, and they say, by the way, you learn more in that first month of life than in the entire rest of your life. So since I am 2 months older than you, I probably know about double what you know at this point.
That's just logic. That's science. That makes sense.
That's science, yes. And I have a master's of science. Mm-hmm. So, but what I want to talk about is that anybody at the age of 49 could have come up with this idea and executed on it. You were really good at executing on it and getting a book deal and writing articles about it and getting all the interviews you did. And you basically put this together. And that's been your career for 20 plus years. And it's what's fascinating to me is it's a career that anyone can start at any age. You could be in your 50s and even on the side working at your cubicle job, you could start an idea like this. But you've made your career from the beginning, this idea that you could basically come up with this intersection between curiosity and uncomfortable, experience it. So you do something, you don't just research, you do something, and then you write about it. You write about what you did. So you're this Gonzo style that you're the character in your experiment. So how did it get started? Like, how did you, as a kid, were you like saying, what happens if I use a number 3 pencil instead of a number 2 pencil for a year?
I wish I had been that smart. That is a great question. I mean, I definitely have always embraced curiosity. There's a quote I have when I interviewed Alex Trebek. He said, I'm curious about things, even those things that I'm not interested in. And I think that's a very important point. Like, you should be curious about everything and force yourself to become interested in things that are totally outside your discipline.
Wait, let me understand that a little bit more. Because, like, for instance, I am not curious about why a spider has 8 arms. You know, like, so I would never once research that, although now probably after this podcast.
Now you've got to. And I'm sure it's going to be fascinating because you can come at it from 100 different angles. Like,
well, and actually you exemplify this in your book, The Know-It-All. You read, the Encyclopedia Britannica, a brilliant idea again. Like, you come up with these brilliant, simple structures.
Bless you, James.
So I'm going to read the Encyclopedia Britannica from A to Z and then write about the experience. So the book is your experience of doing it, but then also all these obscure, amazing things you're learning, and they are all fascinating, even if they're things I never was curious about before.
Right.
So you kind of
once you just dive in a little bit, stick your toe in the water, you can get sucked in. And that, I mean, when I was in college, I majored in intro courses. Like, I wanted to be a dilettante.
You majored in intro courses? Is that a real major?
Not literally, but I took every intro course to everything I could. So psychology, biology, sociology, linguistics, literature, everything.
Did you just do this to get A's and everything? Like, you were a senior taking all these intro classes?
That was an added benefit. But actually, it's a lot of times more work because you had to read, the history of Western society. But the word dilettante, I think, has obviously a negative connotation, but I want to.
But the flip side is Renaissance man.
Yes, Renaissance man, and we don't have that anymore. When I was reading the encyclopedia, I would read about these people in the 19th century who were like Goethe, the writer. He was like a lawyer, a writer, a color theorist. He wrote like scientific tracts on color theory. He was like a mollusk scientist. It was all these crazy things all in one person. And now we have to specialize so much. So it's not practical to be a total dilettante like Goethe now, but I think spreading your curiosity wide helps you in whatever specialty you're in, because it allows you to come up with new ideas, synthesize, like you talk about, idea sex.
Yeah.
And that's embarrassing.
Your phone ringing in the middle of a podcast.
Embarrassing.
And by the way, we don't edit that out.
Now I'm going to come off like a total dick.
You just increased some pain in among men in the world.
That's exactly right. That is.
But let me ask you a question. How, for someone who's been just kind of, there's sort of this idea of, you go the filtered path of like job, graduate school. I mean, undergrad, grad school, job for 30 years, retire, get promotions, save money, retire. Being curious about everything, being this, how someone who's kind of gone this filtered path, how can they now start cultivating that curiosity about everything?
Well, I would say
you've had a lot of practice. You've been doing it for 20 years. I have
had a lot of practice. I force myself to read books about topics I don't know about, even if I am not interested in the topic.
So you go into a bookstore or you go on Amazon.
Right.
What do you do?
Yeah, I just, I'll hear about, I'm trying to think of an example because I should. I mean, the problem is I've been reading widely for a long time. So but something like reading about, the history of garbage or the history of coffee, just trying to, my next book that I plan to read is the Dummy's Guide to Accounting, because I know nothing about accounting, and I feel like a bit of an idiot. And
So what made you think of that particular book? And by the way, accounting is like a cliche for a boring activity.
Right.
But I actually think there are very fascinating topics within accounting.
Yeah, any
'Cause
topic
accounting
you
helps
can
you
think
understand whether a project or a business or an endeavor is going well or not.
Right.
Because it tells you how to account and when to account for different activities that are happening within the project.
Right.
And that is worthwhile about whether you should decide, should I continue this or not?
Yeah. And it's also a lot about cost benefit analysis, which I think we need a lot more of that kind of thinking, cost benefit, because that's the way I try to look at most problems. Nothing is all good. Nothing is all bad. Like I once wrote an article for Esquire about love, the cost benefit analysis of being married to my wife. Charles Darwin, when he was deciding whether to get engaged, he wrote like a pros and cons list. And the cons were like he wouldn't get to spend so much time with his gentleman friends. But the pros were he would have this person to spend his life with. So he ended up, and that's what, for Valentine's, I write my wife, the benefits of being married to you outweigh the costs. That's my love letter to her.
So that is a beautiful notion.
I'm very romantic.
I just want to bring up a Stephen Wright joke about Charles Darwin. So he said, he has that droll way of giving one-liners. Mm-hmm. He's like, so I have a theory about Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. Charles Darwin was adopted. But what else I was going to say about that was
accounting.
No, cost-benefit analysis of love. I forget now, but that's an interesting way to look at everything, I guess, is not that everything should have a net benefit, but you obviously want it to.
I try to have everything have a net benefit, and yeah, that's how I make decisions. Like I came up with this just last week, this sort of 4-quadrant way of making decisions. So when I'm trying to decide my next book project, the 4 quadrants are my current happiness, my future happiness, because it could be that it's a pain in the ass to write the book, but that it'll lead to great things. That's 2 quadrants. And then on the other side is the world's happiness and the world's future happiness. So I could...
So wait, isn't future happiness too correlated with your current happiness to make it a separate quadrant?
Well, because you could do something like, reading an accounting book, I think will be unpleasant in the present, but it'll pay off in the future. Like it's all about like delayed gratification.
So you're saying the world's happiness and your happiness won't benefit from you reading an accounting book right now, but your happiness and the future's happiness, so you'll be in the right quadrant, will benefit from you reading an accounting book.
I don't know about the world so much, but certainly, yeah, me.
Well, it could be the world because that's how you'll decide on listen, with this accounting thing, that's how you decide on future. It'll help you decide what future books to do.
Right, there you go. So that's the way I try to make decisions. And my next book, I am actually.
What's the next book going to be about?
Well, the next book it's for TED Books, and I probably shouldn't talk about it, but I will. Sorry, my publishers.
We won't mention it to anybody. They'll just stay in this room.
It is. It's going to be called something like Thanks for Everything, and it's about the idea of gratitude. And so I take something that I love, like my morning cup of coffee, and I'm going to thank everyone involved in making that cup. So I'm going to Brazil to thank the people who grew the beans, the person who, designed the cup, the person who drove the truck, the barista, of course. And I've already started researching, and it's amazing.
So that's like, it reminds me of the book I Pencil, which shows you all the not in the end goal is very different, but iPencil shows you where a pencil comes from. And so each component, like where were the trees, where was the lead, what was the eraser,
Right.
or the rubber or the metal. So it kind of breaks down like how without modern, 2,000 years of the development of modern technology and agriculture and the Industrial Revolution, we would simply not have a pencil.
Well, that's it. And I want to read that book, but it's all about thousands of people contributed to this cup of coffee. And you just don't think about how many. And I love getting into the details. Like yesterday, I looked up the lid that goes on the coffee, and the amount of thought that went into this coffee lid is just beautiful, because this particular lid, they have an indentation for your nose so it doesn't go up against. They have a little hole that lets the aroma come through. The spout is specially designed so it doesn't go like a fountain like some of the other lids. It like smoothly goes into your mouth.
So wait,
And
and I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm interrupting only because
that's your trademark. It's another trademark. The
Yeah,
hair and the interrupting.
And I got it. It's like a brilliant book, and I'm going to read all. We'll talk many times, I'm sure, before the book comes out about all these different things. But what's amazing to me, again, at first when you told me that this book, my initial when you told me the title and you said it's about gratitude, my initial inclination was to right then say, "Ugh, not another book about gratitude. I am so sick of
It's funny.
articles and books about gratitude."
I read your post, Gratitude Porn, and I loved it because I agree. It's a dangerous thing. And I've actually, one of the things that I've tried to stress in this book is gratitude is a double-edged sword. It can make you very selfish and be like, oh, everything's great. All of this wonderful stuff. But you got to remember, some of these people who are picking the beans are paid $3 a day, and I'm paying $3 for my coffee. So gratitude as a way of inspiring you to make the world better, like almost as like an inspiration for activism.
But again, it's like you have something you're curious about. So it's not just, so we all know the benefits of gratitude. So I don't think you were curious about that. You were curious about all the things you were grateful for, how it actually happens, how it has become created in the world that you then end up with this feeling of gratitude. And then again, you combine that with something uncomfortable. Like, I'm going to go to Brazil and meet these guys who are picking the coffee beans for 3 cents an hour or whatever. And, you're gonna travel all around the world probably, which is super annoying for
super annoying.
An Upper West Side guy who likes to just stay. I know for a fact you just like to stay at home and do nothing. So it's amazing that I even got you into this studio here. So you're gonna go into something super uncomfortable, and an A.J. Jacobs trademark in your books. You're gonna become the main character of your book. It's this sort of humorous gonzo style, like, a Hunter S. Thompson-esque, like you go to the thing and write about it. And so what is it in you? What's the muscle? How can we cultivate this it's this triumvirate, like the weird curiosity about something that's very basic: Bible, knowledge, health, family, gratitude. So it's like you could describe your books with every one of your books you could describe with one word, but then you kind of you go at least 2 layers deeper than that to say to something, to an area where nobody else has thought about, and then you find the edge where it's uncomfortable for you, and that's where you personally visit and then write about it. So this is the AJ formula.
I do think, well, a couple of things. One, I think it's more interesting to write about someone who's in pain and uncomfortable than like someone who's happy. So that, I think, it makes for better. Well,
because Carrie Fisher has said that also.
Yeah?
The late Carrie Fisher.
Well,
she said no one wants to read about beautiful people. They want to read about...
Right, conflict. That's like the basis of all literature and entertainment. So there's that. But then in terms of doing it, I actually don't think I was born a very courageous person. I was I think I was born kind of shy and withdrawn, but I have forced myself to go into these uncomfortable situations, almost like an actor, like a method writer, where I force myself to do it. And I almost look at myself as a character and I can't believe that I'm doing this. But it makes the idea is hopefully that the ends justify the means, that in the end, I'm going to get something good out of it that will make my life better. So the discomfort, it's like training, it's like training for a marathon. It's uncomfortable, but in the end, you'll get this elation from finishing it.
Let's stop to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I try to make this show about peak performance, but what I've learned is that money and abundance are just a side effect of good quality health. Here's the whole thing. Stay physically healthy in whatever way you know. Sleep well, eat well, exercise. That's so important. Be around good people who love you and respect you and who you love and respect, and be grateful every day. And think about what you feed your body. I want to discuss something that I've discovered. I know I'm not the poster boy for fitness, but I do consider myself extremely healthy. So I'm feeling excited to tell you about a part of my morning routine. It's called Athletic Greens. I never know what is going to come up during my day. So I've outsourced part of my health to Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is much more than just another greens product. It's the most complete supplement available, with 75 ingredients working together to help with 11 different areas of health. Just one scoop when I wake up in the morning, and I know I have all my bases covered. It's quick, easy, and it tastes great. It has everything from prebiotics and probiotics for digestion, as well as adaptogens, stress, and hormone support. It has got everything I need to ensure my body and mind are in top shape every single day. This product isn't just for athletes. I'm no athlete. It's for anyone who wants to be on top of their game. Success is about consistency and doing, and taking Athletic Greens each day is the highest leverage thing you can do for your health. Because this is important to me, I've asked them to arrange a special deal for you, the listeners. You can receive a whopping 30% off your first purchase. Simply go to athleticgreens.com/James to claim this special offer. That's athleticgreens.com/James. Getting into a daily routine with Athletic Greens really will be the single best thing you can do for your health and success this year. I can't stress this enough. Do yourself a favor. Jump over right now to athleticgreens.com/James and subscribe today. I never thought I was going to wear a suit again. In the ideal world, I do think I look good in a tuxedo. So I would wear a tuxedo every day. But honestly, it's probably because I never found a suit I liked. Now, Indochino has changed my mind. I'm seeing suits in an entirely new light. Let me tell you why. It's because it actually fits. Most suits go by a generic size chart, and then it's cut by a tailor. I hate waiting for that in the store. When you put on a suit that's made to measure, something that actually fits your body, it's life-changing. Indochino invited me to their beautiful store. They have a bunch, and 2 in New York City. I went to the one on Broome Street, and they measured my chest for me, my arms, and my legs. Happy to share those measurements with anyone who asks, but thank goodness I'm not ticklish. I'm a professional. The point is this: Indochino is making it easy to get a perfectly tailored suit at an incredible price. Here's how it works. Visit a showroom or shop online at Indochino.com. Pick your fabric, choose your customizations from lapels to pleats to jacket linings and more. Submit your measurements, place your order, and just wait for it to arrive in just a few weeks. I really recommend, if you've never had that experience of wearing a made-to-measure suit, then just consider giving it a try now, because the feeling is amazing. It really is different. And this week, my listeners can get any premium Indochino suit for just $379 at Indochino.com when entering James at checkout. That's 50% off, half off the regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit, which is a really, really great deal. Plus, shipping is free. That's Indochino.com, promo code James, for any premium suit for just $379 and free shipping. Incredible deal for a suit that will fit you better than anything off the rack ever could. It's a very interesting thing. What is the comfort zone and what's not in the comfort zone? So people always think that if you're not in the comfort zone, you're doing something that's unpleasant or something that's going to make you unhappy. And that's why it's not in the comfort zone.
Right.
But comfort is just about being comfortable. It's not necessarily about happiness or unhappiness.
Right.
So it could be that happiness in general is not in the comfort zone.
I think that's a great point.
So like if I'm just lying in my couch all day, I'll be comfortable, but I might not be as happy as if I'm with friends or doing something I enjoy or whatever. So sometimes going out of the comfort zone is specifically how you get yourself to be happier.
Well, that's it. I feel that I am naturally kind of a misanthrope and a hermit, but I luckily I married this woman who's very social. So she forces me to go out on to these dinners with friends, and
The worst,
beforehand-
right?
The worst. Like 5 minutes before, I'm like, God damn it, why am I'd rather watch Netflix. But then I'm reminded at dinner, like, oh, people are kind of interesting. I'm getting different points of view, and I come home much happier. So I know intellectually being an extrovert makes me happier than being an introvert, but I know I have to force myself to be an extrovert. And my wife is like way out on the spectrum. Like she will do the electric slide at parties, and she made me do that a couple of times. That was a bridge too far. Like I will not do the electric slide, but all the
an
other
extrovert
stuff.
also doesn't necessarily mean that you despise being out with people, even though your inclination might be to stay indoors. All it really means is, and this might apply to your wife and not apply to you, is that you get energy when you're out with other people, whereas you rejuvenate when you're by yourself. But it has nothing to do with whether you actually enjoy being with the other people, and that's what you realize once you go out with other
Right.
people. You spend your few hours, and then you go home and you're happier, and then you have a chance to rejuvenate.
Well, I actually don't buy that 100% that there's like you're born with those two types of things, that it sucks you out. I think you can change yourself, like one of your mantras. You can like be in charge of yourself, and you can change your personality to some effect and make yourself an extrovert, which is what I'm not a full extrovert, but I'm much more extroverted than I used to be.
I probably am also, but I think I choose to be an introvert. Like I enjoy being by myself.
Right.
Except when, look, we're good friends. We've known each other for years, but the only time we kind of hang out socially is when we're doing a podcast.
It's a great way. It's very efficient.
So this is how I become an extrovert: is I start a podcast, or I give a talk, or
Well, that's it. That is a very smart way. And that's the same thing with my books. I am forced to talk to all these people who are outside my comfort zone, and I would never have contacted. I was forced to talk to, for this book on family, I talked to like this guy who heads up the cousin couples support group for America, like because first cousins are legally allowed to marry in 19 states, and they feel very persecuted that they are not allowed to marry everywhere. So they started this massive support group, and I would never have run into him, but I love that I'm forced to. And it was a fascinating conversation, and he totally changed my perspective on
I
it.
can't wait to read that section in this book. Okay, so it seems like I'm trying to piece together the AJ Jacobs technique, and we skipped a few steps. You kind of have the one word idea that you go 2 levels deeper on to get into the real kind of obscure curiosity. And then at the level where it becomes uncomfortable for you, it's almost as if you sort of recognize that edge, like, oh, I'm feeling uncomfortable, and then okay, that's what I have to do.
True.
Like you wonder out loud, what would it be like is it possible to read, or maybe, I don't know how this happened, the Know-It-All book. Did you wonder who's the smartest person in the world? Or did you just say, I'm curious about all the different things in Encyclopedia Britannica? And then you kind of got to this edge. Well, what if I gave myself a timeline and forced myself to read all of the books and nothing else? And that was your that was your edge. That was the level where you were uncomfortable, and you said, I recognize this feeling of discomfort. Now I have to do it.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is something anybody sitting in a cubicle or commuting and listening to this can do. Any one of these ideas that you did, someone can do and create a book or a show or whatever, and self-publish or whatever and do it.
It's true.
You did it.
Well,
And you're always recreating and coming up with these ideas. But how do you come up with that initial idea?
2 things come to mind when you bring that. I mean, first of all, another writer I know who's great and whose name I'm forgetting now. He was one of the original Saturday Night Live writers, and Alan Zweibel. Alan Zweibel. But I was on a panel with him once, and he had a nice quote where he's like, the writer always has to have two heads, like the head that's in the experience and then a head that's on the shoulder observing and being like, this is weird, this is interesting, this could be. And I actually think you don't have to be a writer. I think it helps everyone because it gives you perspective and it gives you stories for later. So I'm always on the lookout for ideas all the time. So that encyclopedia idea was actually from my dad. I just stole it from my dad. When I was a kid, he started to read the encyclopedia. He made it up to the middle of like the B's, like Bolivia or something. And then he's like, I got better things to do. I got a life. But I was like, well, this is a fun, weird idea. Let me see if I can finish it.
And you knew it would be uncomfortable because it was so uncomfortable.
Right.
He only got up to B.
Exactly.
So you figured, okay, that's probably my edge. So I'm going to go.
Right.
So I have to do it now. It seems to me you don't say I'm going to go past it. You say I have to do it.
And well, the other thing that you bring up about uncomfortableness is, and I think this has made my life so much better, is to embrace it, to lean into it a little. Schadenfreude, the
Yes.
term when you get enjoyment out of other people's pain. I try to practice self-Schadenfreude, whatever, there needs to be a word for it. So when I'm in a situation where it's just going horribly, I can always be like, you know what, this is a disaster.
I love this phrase, self-Schadenfreude, if I'm saying it right.
But I know that I'll be able to tell a story about it later. Like my first TV appearance was on Good Morning America, and I was so nervous. They gave me a water, and I was shaking so hard that I spilled the water on my lap. So it looked like I had just peed. I was not sitting behind a desk. I was on this stool. So I had like this huge pee stain on my pants. I had to contort myself like a yoga master so that no one could really see it. But even then, I was like, this is so horrible. But I know I can write about it later somehow.
You know, it's interesting because the very first time I went on TV, it's one of those things where I was asked and I agreed, knowing I would totally be scared to death beforehand, but it forces you to be ready for it. Like, I know I'm not going to say no once I agree.
Right.
And so it forces you. So
what was that? What was the...
it was a CNBC. It was on Jim Cramer's show on CNBC. It was on like Ludlow, and at the time it was Ludlow and Cramer or something like that. But the other day, I kind of challenged myself to, I've been trying to get better at something that's incredibly uncomfortable, which is stand-up comedy. And I said, okay, I've done a couple of different rooms and clubs, from professional to all sorts of clubs, but I'm going to challenge myself to do something even harder, which is I'm going to go on a random subway car and just start doing stand-up comedy.
I love that.
Because it forces you to be in a crowd that might not be friendly at all. You really don't expect them to laugh. They're not
That is
there.
going to be so fun, comfortable.
Yeah,
I can't even stand it.
And it also
have you done that? Or
I did it.
Oh, you already did it?
Yeah, I did it. And it also forces you to be super tight on your one-liners. Like, you can't have a single extra word on your one-liners, and you have to enunciate them.
They might get out of the car.
Yeah, and their attention span is microseconds. They're not even looking at you, as opposed to a comedy club where a group of people are looking at you waiting to laugh, or as opposed to giving a talk where they're looking at you and they don't even expect to laugh.
Right.
You could just say anything in a talk.
That is
the
insane.
Subway was really
Can you
uncomfortable.
just take me through that really quickly? Like, did you have a microphone, or were you doing it without a mic?
I did it without a mic, but maybe I should have a mic. But we videotaped it, so I had to speak loud enough that the video could pick it up on the iPhone, and because the iPhone was 2 or 3 feet behind me, and I wasn't facing the iPhone, I was facing the people sitting.
Yeah,
and you kind of have to be clean in your jokes too, because for several reasons. One is you don't want to
legally
turn people off right away,
right?
And B, if it seems like a little creepy, you might be a creep. And you don't want to do that at all either. Like, you can't have like sexual jokes. There's kids on the subway. And so so that forces a different level to the comedy as well. And it has to be super tight one-liners. Again,
So can you tell me how it went, or do I have to wait for the video?
I'll show you the video. I'll send it to you. But it went great because my goal was not to make people laugh. My goal was to simply do it. But right before I did it, we got on the subway, and I turned to Pamela, who was right here videotaping this podcast. I turned to Pamela and I said, okay, we just wasted our time because there is zero chance I am going to do this. I looked at the crowd. There was zero chance I was going to do it. It was just people listening to their headphones on the subway. But then like 30 seconds later, I said, okay, turn on the video. And then I just started doing it.
That is
I kind
amazing.
of, because I had made the commitment to myself that I'm already down here, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And I don't know any of these people. Like, what could be wrong with just doing it?
And what's amazing to me is that must make going on stage at a comedy club seem easy. It's like when
we'll see,
baseball
because I just did this 2 days ago, so
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't been on the comedy club since then.
Well, it reminds me of what we were talking about before the show. Like when I practice making a speech, I put CNN on a TV in the background just to distract me, because I know that when I'm on stage, there are going to be people talking and coughing and leaving to go to the bathroom. So I want to prepare myself for distraction. And you had mentioned a fantastic story.
Yeah, so I mentioned Mikhail Botvinnik, who was the world chess champion in the 1950s. He used to play training matches with his opponent blowing smoke right in his face, and he hated smoke more than anything, and it would force him to play under the worst conditions for himself.
I
And
love
then you
that.
mentioned the Tiger Woods situation.
Yeah, someone told me I should Google it to make sure it's true. But the Tiger Woods' dad would throw pennies at him while he was trying to putt to just give him that extra distraction that he's going to have when he's playing a live tournament.
So there is this element that discomfort will actually make you better at what you want to be better at. Like, so you want to be better at giving a talk, so you practice under hard conditions
Right.
that you probably won't even ever have to deal with in real life. And in a comedy club, I'm never going to have to deal with the kind of audience that's in a subway, because in a comedy club, they've pre-selected themselves to be
Right,
there.
right.
Subway, they really don't want you interrupted. Most people don't want you in there and talking. And then also I would do what I will call multiple sets, because I would go from car to car. Every stop, I would just go to a different car, so it's a different audience. And we went from 28th Street to the Brooklyn Bridge all the way back to 28th Street, and each stop was a new set. And so
That is amazing.
I kind of hit every type of audience in that time. And I'll do it again. I'm going to keep doing it because it is good practice.
It's great. It's like, when the baseball players have like 4 different bats while they're warming up on deck, and then they get the one bat when they're actually hitting, and be like, this is easy.
Or the same thing with practicing music. When they tell you, you practice on a piano and hit the keys much harder than you would, just to kind of like get that feeling of, I don't know, that muscle memory in there and in a really hard situation. But I still want to go 2 steps back. And this podcast is turning out to be longer than I thought, but it's fascinating. I want to go 2 steps back. How do you still come up with that initial idea? Like how someone listening to this can start coming up with fun ideas of something that's worth exploring and yet so simple to explain?
Well, I think one of the things we've talked about is the beauty of idea generation, like forcing yourself, again, uncomfortable, forcing yourself to do 15 minutes of brainstorming a day. And I try to do that. I don't always succeed, but like,
You do that. You do try to do that every day,
I
because
do.
I try to do that every day as well.
I know, I love that. And yeah, turning off all electronics and just sitting down and generating ideas. As we've discussed, 99% of them are going to suck, but there's going to be that 1%. It's a numbers game that's going to really work.
Because people ask me, how do you, because I write down 10 ideas a day, and people ask me, well, how do you keep track of them? And I say, I don't. You're going to come up with 3,650 ideas a year if you do this or more, and maybe one of them is good enough to really execute. Also, execution ideas are part of ideas. So some days you'll come up with execution ideas on a prior idea that you feel inspired by.
Right.
And that gives you a chance to quickly test out. If you're good at coming up with execution ideas, it'll give you a chance to quickly test out if an idea is interesting enough. Like your idea about a book about gratitude, where you kind of indulge and go into very deeply what the roots of all these things that you're grateful for are. You were probably able to really test it out. Tell your wife, tell your friends that you trust, tell an
Right.
editor, tell an agent,
I am all for that. Some people, I used to be so secretive about my ideas, it was pathological. And I'll give you an example. My first book was about the eerie similarities between Jesus and Elvis. And it was based on...
I don't remember that book.
Oh, it was like a novelty book. It had literally 800 words. It was like, Jesus is the Lord's shepherd. Elvis dated Sybil Shepherd. That was like, it didn't deserve to be a book. It was like a...
How'd you come up with that one?
That one I came about because I was reading, weirdly, an autobiography of Elvis's hairdresser. Again, just reading outside.
Okay, how did you pick up that book and start reading it? Like what? Out of the 10 million books published last year, why would you pick up that book?
That one was just because this is when libraries were still the main source of. So I went to a library and I just picked up 10 books, which I think you do, right? And just flip through them and find something that's interesting. So I found this. And I was like, that is crazy, but maybe he's right. Maybe.
But you're not just flipping through the book with the idea to be informed. You're also constantly challenging what you're reading. It's like you said, you're finding the weird in what you're reading.
Well, you're actively looking for ideas, not passively reading.
I'm not even going to say actively looking for ideas, because it's not like you picked up that book saying, I want to find ideas that I can use from this book. You're kind of actively looking for something unusual or weird.
That's true. Something that challenges your conventional wisdom and your point of view.
And so somehow you ended up with Sybil Shepherd, and you connected that to Jesus was the Lord Shepherd. Like, how did you do that?
Well, that one is like, I find if you're going to do that kind of humor, it's a pretty simple formula. You just write down on one side of the paper everything you can think of to do with Jesus, and on the other side, everything you can think of to do with Elvis, and then find the connection.
Okay, well then how did you connect Jesus and Elvis? Like, why Jesus?
Well, that was because in this hairdresser's memoir, he said that Elvis once looked at the clouds and said, I see a vision in the clouds of myself as Jesus Christ. I think I am the second coming of Jesus.
So you thought, so I'm just working myself through the AJ technique. You thought to yourself, that is such an outlandish statement that it's weird. So
right.
you put it in the category of weird, and then you ask yourself, well, is that true?
Yeah, try to prove something. Like Chris Rock talks about his method, which is not mine, but he takes like the most outlandish statement he can think of and then tries to prove it with his comedy. It's almost like a debate.
And this is why I call you America's top humorist. And I'll throw you in the category with Dave Barry, who I also think is a very good humorist and a somewhat similar style to yours. A little bit different. He's not as experimental, but it puts himself as a character in his books. But it reminds me of your brilliant, brilliant article, which obviously wasn't a book, but it was shared like 20,000 times on Facebook, when Ann Coulter said she made some kind of somewhat insulting remark about Jews having sex. Like, how many Jews are having sex right now? I forget the context in which she said that.
Yeah.
And you took it literally. She was just making some kind of weird, stupid joke. And you took it very literally and said, well, here's the math.
Right.
And you actually figured it out. And it became this viral
It was
post.
interesting. That one was, she had said something while watching the Republican debates, and she felt that they were trying to appeal too much to the Israel lobby. And she wrote, how many fucking Jews are there in the United States? And I decided, let's find out how many Jews are fucking, and, how many Jews are sexually active, also how many Jews are actually having intercourse when she said that. So I just did the math, and I looked at how many times people have sex, and on average.
So the math, which is, of course, the funny and the viral part, is the easy part, right? So that was the easy part for you. The hard part is deciding, this is outlandish enough.
Right.
Because we hear outlandish things all day long, but you kind of have exercised this muscle of figuring out what's outlandish enough to take the next step with, and then you go from the outlandish to the literal. So you'll say, okay, that was an outlandish statement that Ann Coulter made. I'm going to write the statement out and look at it in various ways. And so that's why when she said, fucking Jews, you took it literal. You go from the outlandish to the literal. And with the Elvis comparing himself to Jesus, you said, well, what if we took that really literally? We have to make a list of all the qualities and see how they intersect. And with the gratitude, you're taking it very literally. It's not just that, oh, I'm so grateful for this nice cup of coffee. What are you really, when you say that statement, what are you really grateful for? And you have to really, that's how you get from that first kind of simplistic statement to this level of depth that you get to that becomes funny and makes you a character. And in the case of your book, it makes you a character. In the case of the Ann Coulter thing, it makes you a humorist.
Right.
And with the books, you combine both.
What I love about this is that you have explained my work style better than I could have. Like, you have cracked the code, and it's going to help me in the future.
Or maybe it'll throw you off.
Yeah,
like,
it might throw me into self-conscious.
Yeah, now I'm falling too much into James's formula for my technique.
But I think you're right. Like, taking something that's said a million times and then delving deep into it and seeing it from 100 different angles, that really is... That's very fruitful, I think.
Well, let's take a common statement that we referred to earlier. Life is too short. So that's a very common statement. It's a cliche.
Right.
To say that or to write that or to give that advice is a cliche.
Right.
So that might be even so simplistic and cliche that it's not worth kind of taking it literally. But what would be, if you were to do something with that, what would you do?
Well, first of all...
I'm not saying you should do something with that. Again, it might be too simplistic, but what would you do?
This is, I would say there are a couple of ways to approach it. One, and this is not for comedy, this is just for brainstorming. Take each one of those words and break it down. So what does life mean? Like, if I were being, tortured in a Iraqi prison for my entire life, is that life too short? I'd want that life to end after like 10 seconds. So I don't know what that's going to lead to, but that's just an interesting way to say, let's look at what those words mean. And then life is too short. Well, what does that mean? Life is too short. If I really lived 10,000 years, would that be good? I would, it reminds me of the Twilight movies, where the vampires, they are immortal. And so this guy, the main guy character, he was a Civil War soldier. So he's literally like 170 years old. And he is dating a 17-year-old high school student. I would fucking hate that. Like, I don't want to date a high school student when I'm 170. So is life too short? Or do you want to be 170? And who are you going to date when you're 170? So just breaking it down and looking at it very literally and what each aspect of that sentence means.
That's really fascinating. So I'm going to, this is good exercise to kind of think of all the statements you hear. So life, the problem with the phrase life is too short is that it's not outlandish, like what Ann Coulter said or what Elvis said. But even with like these simplistic cliches, it's possible to do your style of technique, and potentially you can make a whole book out of it.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's taking...
Like, you could look at all the animals on Earth and figure out, like, well, you say humans life is too short, but we're going to go through 10,000 generations of ants by the time we die.
Right.
So, it's not too short for if an ant was looking at our lifespan, for instance, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I actually, and I may do this sometime, like the phrase would be, the idea would be to take a very familiar phrase and really just go deep, deep into it. So we hold these truths to be, oh man, this is embarrassing. As an American, I should be kicked out.
These truths to be inevitable?
Inalienable.
Inalienable sounds right.
Oh man, I don't know. This is embarrassing.
Jay, what is it? Google it.
But anyway, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What? Self-evident. God. So what are the inalienable rights? Those are something else. Anyway, well, I just exposed
Those are the
my
ones
complete
against
ignorance.
extraterrestrials.
But I know. But yeah, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Just going into. Oh, I know. There was also all men are created equal. Let's go to that for 1 second. First of all, men, like, that's a fascinating thing. They just focus on the men. Created equal, Stephen Hawking's brain was not created equal with mine. And created, what does that mean? Like, who decides? Does that mean you need a creator, or can an atheist embrace this? So the very most basic phrases, just delving deep into them and finding out.
So that's a basic one. What's an outlandish one that you could think of that you're not really going to explore, but you thought, that's kind of weird that someone just said that this morning?
Well, when I interviewed the guy who represented first cousin marriage, the idea of first cousin marriage is good, or first cousin marriage should not be illegal. And delving into that, I think why do we find first cousin marriage so repulsive? And I think there's an evolutionary reason, but if you think about it, the most logical argument against first cousin marriage is that you're going to have genetic defects in your kids. But look at it now. We have DNA tests that can tell all sorts of genetics. So if you are marrying someone who's ostensibly not related to you at all, like, 40th cousin, and you both have the Alzheimer's gene, should you not be allowed to get married? Or the risk of first cousin marriage birth defects is about the same as a 40-year-old woman having a child. So should a 40-year-old woman not be allowed to have a child?
So, and this also gets into the issue of marriage as an institution, as a legal institution. So I remember having this discussion several years ago with a friend of mine who was against gay marriage and gay marriage rights. And he said to me the point of, well, why can't anyone then just get married to anyone else? Like, if you pass gay marriage laws, that was his argument. And he's like, for instance, why can't a kid get married to his grandmother to avoid estate taxes? And my feeling was, okay, well, why not? Like, why can't a kid get married to his grandmother? Because it's just a legal institution. But then, so then it is looking at, again, every single word. But again, you either take the outlandish, like in the Ann Coulter case or the Elvis case, or you take the simple, like knowledge. And I'm going to read, what's the most outlandish thing? So I'm going to take actually one step further back. You make the outlandish statement. So Bible, I'm going to live a biblical life for a year. Gratitude, I'm actually going to break down everything I'm grateful for in a way that nobody ever has.
Right.
Family, not only are we all related, but I'm going to build the family tree of the entire world. So you make the outlandish statement,
right,
and then your literal thing is all the ways in which you can execute on it, and that's how you create a book.
That is one way I come up with ideas, is I will take something and then push it to the farthest extreme. So for instance, when I read, like 12 years ago, The World is Flat by Tom Friedman, and he was talking about banks and law firms outsourcing to India, like India would do their work for him. I was like, well, how can I take that to the extreme and apply it to my own life? What if I just outsourced every single thing possible? And that was the genesis of this article that sort of was excerpted in Tim Ferriss's book.
And also it was the genesis of your best-selling book, My Life as an Experiment.
Right. And it was so taking things to the ridiculous extreme, the, absurdio ad reductum, knowing that a lot of it will be ridiculous, but in the end, there will be something you can learn from it.
So, okay, let's take a simple word that's a common thing and try to figure out what the next outlandish step is.
Okay, I like it.
So the word play.
Play, as in the
like
theater or playing?
No, yeah.
Well, you could try to gamify your entire life. Like there was this, this trend of gamification, trying to make things.
Oh, and there was this novel. You ever read the Dice Man?
I love the Dice
Man. By Luke Reinhardt.
That was crazy.
It's a 1970s book, I think.
Yeah,
and just every decision he made, he'd roll the dice.
Yeah, that was an insane book. Really interesting. his life did not turn out so well in the end. Like, I think he was, he was in jail by the end. Maybe
Which
not.
is going to happen in a very kind of straight and narrow society. If you make your life even a little volatile,
Right.
based on chance, you're going to end up in jail almost always.
Yeah, well,
or dead.
I try not to, like, in my experiments, those are two of the parameters. I try not to go to jail or be killed.
Okay, so you could have rules to the game.
Right, that's true. But yes, so if you take this idea of play and gamification, which a lot of corporations are doing, the leaderboard for how many, who's made the most sales, and turn it into a game, and you get a bonus if you're number one on the leaderboard. What if you just gamified every aspect of your life? So, like, gamify your sex life. How many orgasms can you make your girlfriend have? Gamify your food. How many asparagus stalks can you have, and you get a prize.
So
for
what
the
would you?
amount.
So just thinking of this out loud, what would you do each day? Would you say, okay, I have these activities to do. I'm going to come up with the rules of each game right now of how I'm going to gamify them. Like your rules about food might change each day. Like you might say, I'm going to make a game of how long can I go without sleeping, or how long can I go without eating today, or can I only drink water? I don't know. Or with the relationship with your wife, you can wake up and say, how long can I go without speaking to her before she gets angry? And
That's a dangerous
We're going to
game.
go for a record.
But I think that's right. To fully embrace play, you would always want to be coming up with new games, and you could do it in your word. How many words? Give myself an hour. How many words can I produce in that hour, and how many of them are usable?
So now to take the AJ technique to the next step in this, I think the average author, the non-AJ author, will say, here's 100 games you can play to make your life better, and kind of have this sort of, right by the cashier sort of book that's one of those on-demand books, and it's a little cute, and it's like a gift book. But an AJ, you would actually do this for a year, gamify your life every day for a year, and then write about what happened.
Right.
And that's the AJ technique.
And I will say,
and each game kind of has to be a little uncomfortable.
That's true. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not a game, because you have to compete against someone else or
games are
yourself.
uncomfortable to lose.
Right. There's always something
and they're
at
hard
stake.
to play.
And I will say one thing is, to take an idea and push it to the extreme. One thing I do try to keep in mind is that, I'd say 70% of these experiments are failures, and they suck, and I don't even write about them. So,
What's something that you didn't write about?
Well, one I wanted to do, this was like 10 years ago when social media was just starting, was I was going to only interact with my wife and kids through social media. So I'd be in my room, I could tweet at them or Facebook them or Skype, but I would not actually talk to them face to face. And my wife was like, that is not going to happen at art. So
that experiment didn't work.
That didn't work. I mean, I've wanted to do one for a while where it's like a life of drones. So how much can I use drones? Like, if my kid wants a glass of milk, get a drone to bring it to him in the apartment, or have a drone hovering over his homework, and I can help him with his homework from my own bedroom.
But by the way, with all these ideas, and I think we're kind of getting to we're cracking the shell on the AJ technique. One thing I think that's a common theme is, on the one hand, you take an umbrella approach. So take the Year of Living Biblically. You wrote a book, you wrote articles, you have a TV show coming. I'm sure you've done many talks about it and what you've learned. You've done podcasts about it. So that's what I mean by an umbrella approach. You take one idea and you figure out, here are all the ways I can express this idea. Once I do the work, and then here's all the ways I can express the work.
Right.
So although you're a writer first, you kind of take this umbrella approach that there's many ways, many outlets of expression. But one thing you don't seem to have is you don't seem to have a good, and I'm saying this, I've told you this before, you don't seem to have a good business sense about what you do. And I'll describe what I mean, because it's based on a conversation we've had maybe a year and a half ago.
I love that.
Like this family thing, you could have you could have turned this into a whole business. You could have been an affiliate for all the DNA testing. You could have charged for all the family reunions. You could have had different types of sponsors that would have paid a lot more. You could have made T-shirts with everybody's family tree and how they're linked to you, and charged like $100 for that. I would have bought it, or how everybody's linked. You could make a T-shirt for each person that's individualized, how they're related to all the presidents. Because there's only one president that's not related to everybody.
Martin Van Buren.
Martin Van Buren. I think that's it. I don't know why because he's Dutch.
Yeah, he's Dutch.
Yeah, and so we were just brainstorming. We thought of like 10 different ways for you to make easy money,
right?
And because you could have outsourced everything and just taken 50% of their profits, and it's just not what you do. It's not.
I know. I mean, I wish that I had half of your brain, because you are so brilliant at business and coming up with these ideas.
Well, what you could do is simply hire. For all of these other things that are outside how you normally make. So you want to keep making money how you normally make money. You don't want anybody to take any of that. But you can basically get yourself interns or hire a business manager and say, look, anything that I'm not currently making money on is your domain. And you make all the deals, and whatever comes into the kitty, we split it 50-50. And then it's just free money for you at the end of the idea.
Yeah, which is you do brilliantly. You have 100 businesses like that, right?
Yeah, I kind of, ownership is key, but then you want to make sure you own something, but then you outsource as much as possible of it, because I'm not good at all these things. And you outsource to the people who are good at it because they maximize what you can make, and you can actually make more money than if you were to do it personally.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've thought over the years of doing a business book where I would dive in and try to be the best venture capitalist or whatever.
Oh, we talked about that.
Yeah. So I think if I did that as a project, I would become much more savvy at finance. And that is partly why, as I said, I want to read Accounting for Dummies. This is a big gap in my knowledge. I'm not good at business like you are. So this could be a fun thing to...
I'm not necessarily good at it either. I just outsource a lot of it. I outsource my brain. The key is to have a multi-mind instead of a unimind.
I agree with that. And also delegation, that was the whole my outsourced life. I delegated everything, and it was the greatest month of my life because I could just watch movies and read books, and these people were emailing my boss and arguing with my wife for me. It was fantastic. So delegation is a beautiful thing.
So AJ, this is episode 1 of where the basic idea. I wanted to do a mini series with you, and I still want to do it. A mini series within the podcast where every few weeks we meet, we challenge each other to something somewhat uncomfortable, as we've been talking about. We do it, and we either succeed or fail. We report back, describe what happened, and then challenge each other for the next episode. Now, on episode 0, where we discussed the benefits of these challenges, we challenged each other to hugging a complete stranger. We both had some experiences with it, but...
holding hands as well.
Holding hands, for 60 seconds.
It was all
it was holding hands for 60 seconds. So that's
about human contact.
Yes.
Because that lowers your stress level. So the idea was, are there benefits to holding hands with either friends or strangers?
So I'm gonna leave this episode with a cliffhanger. Let's continue that challenge into the next episode where we will talk about it. And because I think we've both tried and had our own experiences with it. But this has been a great episode because finally I feel I've cracked the code on the AJ Jacobs technique. And so I'm going to go off and write a book now about, let me see, what should I write a book about?
Maybe hair. That seems to embrace
I'll write
the
a book.
hair.
Well, no, but hair is not as global as gratitude.
I don't know. Everyone has hair. I have a friend who wrote a post about why he has a $300 haircut every...
Oh, Derek Halpern.
Yeah, and he says it's the most popular of his posts.
Wait, no, I'm going to think of right now an AJ Jacobs style word that I could dive deep down on.
A lot of people have suggested sex, but my wife is like, no.
And you've kind of done honesty.
I did do some honesty.
You in the My Life as an Experiment book, you did a chapter on it.
On radical honesty. Yeah, that was terrifying.
But honesty. Oh, okay. Because I love this, humor could be.
That's a great idea.
But then I got to find something outlandish. But I've already started doing that with the subway.
Well, the subway is beautiful.
And I just want to say also, and then we're going to end this podcast. So stay tuned for the cliffhanger because we'll be back in a couple weeks with our stories of uncomfortable contact with strangers. And B, AJ and I are about to go to a subway, and I'm trying out a format where it's almost like a late night talk show in a subway. And AJ, you're going to be my very first guest, and we're going to talk about your book. So that'll be on video.
I am dreading it. It's going to be so unpleasant, but I'm going to love it.
Well, thanks very much for joining us once again on the James Altucher Show. AJ Jacobs, author of the upcoming book, It's All Relative. When does the book come out?
November 7th.
So we're going to be on here many more times before then. And when's your TV show? But if the pilot is greenlit,
well, it is greenlit. It's officially. They're doing 13 episodes. So that will be.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah, that's in January or February. It's a winter show.
Man, I'm kind of feeling now. I was sincere about being excited for you. Now I'm a little jealous. I wanna write for your show somehow.
Are you kidding? They would be lucky to have you.
How can I write or pitch one script idea for the show? They probably have it all scripted out though. It's probably
I am happy
to
connect you, but I think you got a better job, to be honest. But
we'll see.
I'm happy to. Yeah, I would
next
love
season.
James. Yes.
All right. Thanks, AJ.
Thank you, James.
Bye. Man, great episode.
That was fun.
For more from James, check out the James Altucher Show on the Choose Yourself Network at jamesaltucher.com and get yourself on the free insiders list today.
Hey, thanks for listening. Listen, I have a big favor to ask you, and it will only take 30 seconds or less, and it would mean a huge amount to me. If you like this podcast, please let me know. Please let the team I work with know. Please let my guests know. And you can do this easily by subscribing to the podcast. It's probably the biggest favor you could do for me right now, and it's really simple. Just go to iTunes, search for The James Altucher Show, and click subscribe. Again, it will only take you 30 seconds or less, and if you subscribe now, it will really help me out a lot. Thanks again.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power, so how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/advance. That's oracle.com/advance. Oracle.com/advance.